Thank you for your time tonight. So we're in the very, very early stages of the budget development process. It's a several-month process, but it is underway, and it'll be going on for the next 4 months. So you get to hear from me for a lot more months to come. So some of the things we're going to talk about is goals of the budget. Every year, every presentation, we remind what the focus of how we get to determine what goes into the budget. Giving a brief explanation of what is a rollover budget, share what the dollar amount of the rollover budget, and then other financial considerations that we have discussed in the audit committee, because some of these questions came up, and it's a perfect opportunity to share with other board members not on the audit committee and community members about things that happen in the budget, and sometimes it's the results of, at the end of the year, of our audits. So we'll talk about that. Next steps and budget calendar review. So our goals of the budget is to enhance the comprehensive education that the VCS district community expects. You just heard a little bit about that. Improve the alignment of resources towards the district strategic plan. Maintain and stabilize the reserves. Maximize the use of every dollar spent. Maximize the ability to generate future aid. And then, of course, transparency. So a rollover budget is we basically take our current staffing levels and then we make contractual increases based off health insurance increases, pension costs, salary, contractual raises, and nothing else. We haven't got to the point where we're looking at layering in retirements, so you may see some of these salaries go down, and they're actually, for the most part, the salaries that were built in the budget from last year, so there could be a lot of retirements from last year to now. And it's very critical to get this understanding because this is the baseline of our budget. And so when we see the revenues, we already know what our biggest component, which is our staff, how much it costs, and anything extra is where we talk about increasing supplies and materials, increased staffing, and that. So it gives us a baseline understanding, because come January, February is when the conversation and the information about what our revenues are going to look like. So it's the first part of the budget development process. So as I shared, the largest component of our budget is our salaries and benefits. Overall, our professional salaries are going up roughly $1 million or 3%. Our support salaries are seeing the biggest increase percentage-wise of 6.11%, or just over $700,000. Fringe benefits, there are a lot of assumptions in this one based off of preliminary information, and again, this number is subject to change. Right now, the Health Consortium has informed us that health insurance premiums based off of utilization is from in the mid to upper teens, so this is a very conservative estimate. If it comes in lower than that, some of those fringe benefits are coming down. New York State TRS is currently giving us a 0.75% range of what that is. So again, this is planning for the worst, hoping for the best. And we're waiting for some workers' comp numbers. It's a small component of that, but that should come down. Overall, the cost of our staff is going up $5 million or 6.72%. Non-personnel related expenses, everything, as you can see, stays at zero except for debt. That's something that we can actually look at. It's based off of our borrowing. We are seeing a decrease in debt from projects from 15 years ago. So there is a decrease in expenses of $790,000. Before everybody gets too excited about that, there is a corresponding revenue that goes with that. So you will see a decrease in building aid that goes along with it. So it's good news, but it's not. So once we get our building aid numbers, we'll get a better understanding of what that change is. I believe the revenue is going to drop roughly about $900,000, so there is still a net loss on that one. So overall, as we stay today with our current staffing levels not increasing for any inflation for supplies, materials, and equipment, we are looking at an increase of $4.3 million, 4.296, or 4.34. Currently we're hoping to get a minimum revenue of $103 million. Any questions on the rollover budget? So other financial consideration, and these are things that we we look at, but we don't react to due to the volatility nature of these things, and that is varying interest rates, changes in the ERS contribution rates, and changes in the TRS rates. So this diagram is how much the district has received in interest over the last 10 months, or 10 years, sorry. And while I would like to take credit for those columns on the far right side, when I started in Victor 3 years ago, interest rates were at 0.05%, and Penny, our district treasurer, is very aggressive and gets about 5.3%. So interest is up 10,000% in the last 3 years I have been here. And as you see the ebbs and flows of it, another component of this is the district's planning for future capital projects reserves. So in 2018-19, you can see a high point at the time the district had a capital reserve. We spent the capital reserve, so again, there's decreasing interest rates, but also decreased deposits on account, which is having that impact. And again, as the district has stabilized the reserves and has planned for the capital project, you're seeing a steep increase. About half of that money is non-spendable money, because reserve interest must go back into the reserve and cannot be used to support the budget. But overall, we're doing quite well on interest, but you can't react to the interest money. You don't want to add a personnel, because if you drop $2 million, you're looking at significant cuts. So when you see these types of numbers that come out at the year end, they're purposeful, but we can respond to them in the appropriate manner. So with interest, we have two options on when we see increase of interest. So the first one is we can use the money for one-time expenses. That's been a common topic that Dr. Terranova and I have shared. So if there's something that comes up, one-time purchases, not reoccurring expenses, we could use it for that. The other is to use the money to help bolster our reserves, and then use it to offset future interest rate or tax rates as we do capital project, bus purchases, etc. So those are the two things. When we look at the amount of interest we budget, we look at a 5 to 7 year, and we take the average, so that way we're not reacting too much to the ebbs and flows of interest rates. Right now, the current interest rates are supposed to hold until July, and the federal government is going to meet at that time, and the current speculation is that those interest rates are going to drop, because with the increased interest rates, it's having a negative impact on the economy, so those interest numbers will most likely decrease in future years. Our pension contributions, so that was a positive. There is a negative coming down the line for the New York State Employee Retirement System, which is our support staff. Right now, the employer contribution rate is going up 2.2%. So in addition to, obviously, everybody's getting raises, minimum wages going up, in addition to salaries going up, and it's a percentage of salaries, but the contribution rate is going up 2.2%. And for our current budget for support staffs is $13 million. So every 1% that goes up, it's an additional $130,000. So what happens is we kind of get a rough estimate of what that percentage rate is, and we budget for it. So when it goes up, we don't have to make cuts to accommodate for it. And then when it goes down, we ignore it and we look at one-time purchases or use the surplus in the budget to help support those reserves as well. And here's a chart of the employee retirement system contributions over the last several years. Obviously, a high mark was about 23%, and we're going over 15% for the next year. So again, just trying to show the volatility of these percentages. TRS over the last several years it's been doing pretty well, and it's been staying pretty flat. But again, if you go back to 2014, 2015, it was almost 18%. Now it's hovering around 10%. And a lot of this depends on how New York State and the comptroller invests money in the results of the stock market. Something goes bad, you're going to see those rates go up again. Any questions about those three considerations? These are easy today. So our next steps, myself, I will meet with the Department and Buildings for non-personnel related budgetary needs. Dorothy D'Angelo, our Assistant Superintendent for Personnel, will be doing the same, but talking about personnel needs. Dorothy provides that information to me. I put a rough estimate. We work in a group to build a spreadsheet of the requests that we have, and then we take it to the district cabinet and we prioritize based off of program needs, safety, security, et cetera. We basically put them in a priority need. From there, towards the end of February, we start getting a clearer picture of what our revenues is. And from there, we already know what our baseline budget is, that $103 million that we discussed earlier. If our budget is, our revenues are at $104 million, we look at, based off of that prioritized list, what we would like to make a recommendation to the Board of Education to be included into the budget. And then that process goes on for the next 3 months with a final budget recommendation to the Board of Education to be adopted in April. So budget calendar review on Wednesday, not Thursday, Wednesday, January 10th, we will be talking about transportation, operation, maintenance, and security. On Thursday, January 27th, we will be talking about building budgets, just the non-personnel needs. On Thursday, February 8th, we'll start talking about the Office of Instruction and Pupil Services. Thursday, February 29th, we will talk about revenues and tax cap calculation, give you an idea, and that's where we should start making a preliminary decision which way we want to go. We have our first, again, it's a preliminary tax cap filing with the State Comptroller's Office. On Thursday, March 14th, you'll start hearing a little less of me, a little more of Dorothy with a personnel update. March 28th, we'll give you any updates on changes at that point. We're hoping to hear what the state's final budget may possibly be, so it could be increases, it could be decreases. We're hoping for increases in aid. Thursday, April 11th is when we'll get the final overview of the budget, and that's the date in which we will be looking for an adoption of the budget. May 17th is the budget hearing, along with the Meet the Candidates Night, sponsored by PTSA and PI. Tuesday, May 14th, in the district office conference room, we have voter registration because you need to be a registered voter to vote in our budget vote and the Board of Education election. And then on Tuesday, May 21st is our budget vote and Board of Education election.